The fingers on my right hand still don't bend the way they used to. Frostbite does that. Takes something from you that you never get back. But honestly, the fingers are the least of what I lost that night. It was January. Deep January. The kind where Minnesota stops pretending it's livable. I was 53, recently retired from the county road crew, and I'd rented a small cabin near the Boundary Waters for 2 weeks. My wife thought I needed the solitude. Turns out she was right. Just not in the way either of us expected. The cabin belonged to an old acquaintance, Dale, who'd stopped using it after his knees gave out. He told me the access road was plowed twice a week, and that the nearest neighbor was about 4 miles east. A retired teacher named Gus, who checked in on the property occasionally. That was the extent of my safety net. 4 miles and a man I'd never met. I didn't mind. I'd spent 30 years working outside in Wisconsin and Minnesota winters. The cold wasn't something I feared. I packed enough food for 3 weeks, a generator, 2 cords of stacked wood, and a shortwave radio for weather updates. I was prepared. That's what I kept telling myself later, when none of it mattered. The first 5 days were peaceful. I read, I slept, I watched the tree line from the window with a cup of coffee, and felt genuinely calm for the first time in years. The forest out there is something else in January. Perfectly still, like the whole world is holding its breath. On the 6th day, it started snowing. Not unusual, but the shortwave had mentioned a system pushing down from Canada, and by early afternoon the visibility had dropped to maybe 30 feet. I added wood to the stove and settled in. No reason to worry yet. That's when I noticed the tracks. They came from the tree line, maybe 60 yards from the cabin's front window, and moved in a straight line toward the porch before stopping, about 10 feet from the door. Boot prints, human, large, and they just ended. No turn, no return path, just stopped, as if whoever made them had been lifted straight up into the white sky. I stood at that window for a long time trying to make sense of it. Wind doesn't erase prints selectively. These were clean, deep impressions going one direction, and then nothing. I told myself the snow had filled them in unevenly. I told myself a lot of things. That night, I deadbolted the door for the first time. I woke up around 2 a.m. to a sound I still can't fully describe. Low, rhythmic, coming from somewhere outside and to the north, where the tree line curved around toward the frozen lake. Not an animal, or at least nothing I recognized from 3 decades of working rural Minnesota. It had a cadence to it, almost deliberate, like someone slowly dragging something heavy across ice. It stopped after about 4 minutes. Then silence, so complete it felt pressurized. I didn't sleep again that night. By morning, the storm had eased to flurries, and I made myself go outside to check the tracks. They were still there, mostly intact. I followed them back toward the tree line, studying them. Size 12, maybe 13 boot, deep heel strike. And in the spot where they ended, this is the part one keep coming back to. The snow around the last print was disturbed in a wide circle, packed down and swept outward, like something had displaced a large amount of air very suddenly. I went back inside and tried the shortwave. Static. I checked my cell. No signal, which wasn't unusual out there, but it felt different that morning. More final. I spent the afternoon convincing myself there was a logical answer. Snowshoer who turned back. Trick of wind and drifting. My own imagination, primed by too much quiet. By 4 o'clock, with the light already failing, I'd almost managed it. Then I saw the figure, standing at the edge of the tree line, perfectly still, just at the border of where the floodlight from the porch reached, where shape becomes suggestion, and suggestion becomes whatever your mind wants to make up it. Tall, unmoving, facing the cabin. I stood at the window for what felt like 10 minutes without breathing. The figure didn't move, didn't shift. I finally grabbed my flashlight and opened the front door, which was one of the stupider things I've done in my life, and pointed the beam toward the tree line. Nothing there. No figure, no movement. But when I swung the flashlight down, there were fresh boot prints in the snow on my porch. Right there, 3 feet from where I was standing. I went back inside and didn't come out again. Sometime around midnight, someone knocked on the door. 3 knocks, measured, patient, not frantic, not aggressive, just 3 deliberate knocks from someone who seemed confident I would answer. I stood in the middle of the room with a fireplace poker in my hand. It didn't make a sound. After about a minute, I heard footsteps moving off the porch. Slow, unhurried. I moved to the side window, keeping the light off, and pressed against the wall to look out. The porch floodlight caught a shape moving toward the tree line, walking away. Not running, just walking, like someone who'd made a social call and found nobody home. I watched until the darkness took it. I don't know what I would have done if it had knocked again. I'd like to say I was calm, but the truth is, I stood in that same spot for another 2 hours, shaking, listening to the absolute silence outside. I left at first light, didn't pack properly, left food on the counter, a book open on the chair, the stove running. Just took my keys and drove out on 4 inches of fresh snow, fishtailing on Dale's access road, not stopping until I hit the county highway and saw another car, a green pickup heading north, and I nearly wept from the relief of just seeing another human being in the ordinary world going about their ordinary morning. I called Dale from a gas station in town, told him something was wrong with the generator and I had to leave early. I never told him what actually happened. Never told my wife the full story either. What would I have said? Someone knocked on my door in the middle of a Minnesota blizzard, and I don't think they meant to help me. Gus, the neighbor Dale had mentioned, I looked him up about a month later, just to close the loop in my mind. His daughter answered when I called. She told me her father had been in a rehabilitation facility since November. A bad fall. He hadn't been near that property in 2 months. I thanked her and hung up. I've never been back to the Boundary Waters. Probably never will. I don't have a clean explanation for what happened out there. And at 61 years old, I've stopped trying to build one. Some things that happen in the dark in deep winter just don't come with answers. But I'll tell you this. Whenever a snowstorm rolls in and the world gets quiet and white and closed off, I check my door locks every single time, and I stand just a little back from the window,